Chosen one, stop. Don't scroll past this. I need you to hear something that's going to shake you to your core. What if I told you that every sleepless night you've spent wondering, what's wrong with me? Every morning you've dragged yourself to a job that felt like spiritual suffocation. Every time you've been called lazy or ungrateful for not fitting into their machine. What if all of that was God protecting you from a trap? Listen to me carefully. Have you ever noticed that your body literally revolts when you try to do what everyone else celebrates? That something inside you shuts down when you attempt to chase what the world calls success? You thought you were broken. But what if you were being blocked by the divine himself? Here's the shocking truth they don't want you to know. You weren't created to retire. You were created to ignite. While everyone around you is building someone else's dream, God has been whispering to your spirit, not this, not for you. I have something else. That restlessness, that's not depression. That's divine dissatisfaction. That's your soul rejecting counterfeit purpose. And if you felt this quiet stirring, this knowing that there's something more, comment 444. Right now. That's how I know this word is reaching the exact person it was meant for. Before we go deeper, I want to acknowledge something beautiful. Thank you to every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message is resonating with your soul, go ahead. But here's what's about to change everything you thought you knew about work, about purpose, about why you've never fit in. You weren't made to survive retirement. You were made to awaken others just by being you. The system that's been rejecting you, you were never meant to serve it. You were meant to disrupt it. Stay with me. What I'm about to show you next will explain why every job felt wrong and what God is calling you to do instead. Why do you feel like a stranger in your own life? Why does every normal path feel like walking through quicksand? Why does the American dream feel more like a beautiful nightmare that you can't wake up from? Because they trained you wrong from day one. Listen to me, chosen one. From the moment you could walk, they handed you a script. Go to school, get good grades, find a stable job, work for 40 years, retire at 65. Then what? Sit on a porch somewhere and wait to die. But here's what they never told you. Rest has never felt like rest for you, has it? Because your soul is still waiting to be used. Think about this for a moment. You've been told your entire life that the goal is retirement, that the finish line is when you stop working. But every fiber of your being knows that can't be right. Deep inside, something is screaming, I wasn't born to count down to irrelevance. And you're absolutely right. They built a machine, and they convinced you that your highest calling was to be a well-oiled part of it. Clock in at 9, clock out at 5, contribute to someone else's vision, build someone else's legacy, make someone else rich while you make just enough to survive until you're too old to contribute anymore. This is the greatest theft in human history. They didn't just steal your time, they stole your identity. Remember the Israelites in Egypt? For 400 years, they were trained as slaves. Generation after generation learned to make bricks, to serve Pharaoh's agenda, to accept that their highest achievement was building monuments to someone else's glory. They forgot they were descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They forgot they were chosen, but God didn't forget. And when Moses came to deliver them, you know what the hardest part was? It wasn't convincing Pharaoh to let them go. It was convincing the Israelites they were meant for more than slavery. That's exactly where you are right now. You've been trained to think like a slave, but you were born to lead. You've been programmed to serve the machine, but you were created to break it. You've been conditioned to punch clocks, but you were destined to punch holes in darkness. And the proof is in your restlessness. The proof is in that voice that keeps whispering, there has to be more than this. I want you to picture something with me. Imagine a decorated war veteran coming home after years of service overseas. They've seen combat, they've led missions, they've made life and death decisions, they've carried the weight of protecting freedom itself. Now imagine that same veteran being told, "Welcome home, here's your new job. You'll be filing paperwork in cubicle 47B. Don't think too much, don't question the system. Just do what you're told and be grateful for the steady paycheck." How do you think that feels? That's your life right now, chosen one. You're a spiritual warrior being asked to file paperwork for eternity. You're a prophetic voice being told to keep quiet and blend in. You're a divine disruptor being trained to maintain status quo. No wonder your soul is in rebellion. The machine of this world operates on predictability, conformity, and control. It needs you to be useful but not powerful, efficient but not awakened, busy but not aligned. But the rhythm of the Spirit, it's completely different. It moves in seasons, not schedules. It flows in purpose, not productivity. It builds through calling, not climbing corporate ladders. And you, dear one, you were wired for the Spirit's rhythm, not the world's machine. This is why you feel exhausted trying to do what energizes everyone else. This is why promotions feel empty. This is why salary increases don't fill the void. Because you're trying to find spiritual satisfaction in a soulless system. The world convinced you that your worth equals your work. But God says your worth comes from His calling on your life. The world says retirement is the goal. But Scripture says, even in old age they will still produce fruit. They will remain vital and green. Psalm 92:14. You weren't created to count down to irrelevance. You were created to count up to impact. Here's the controversial truth they don't want you to know. The system that's been rejecting you wasn't designed for people like you in the first place. It was designed to extract value from you, not to activate the treasure within you. When Jesus called the disciples, He didn't send them to HR departments. When God called Moses, there was no application process. When the Spirit filled the apostles, they didn't update their LinkedIn profiles. Divine assignments don't come through career counselors. They come through communion with the Creator. And if you've been feeling like the traditional path is suffocating your spirit, that's not defiance, that's discernment. Comment, no more chains if you know you've been lied to. Because what I'm about to show you next will completely revolutionize how you see your purpose. You weren't created to punch clocks. You were created to punch holes in darkness. But here's what happens when a chosen one finally stops trying to fit into the world's mold and starts operating from their divine blueprint. Listen, I know what they told you. They said you were lazy. They whispered you were ungrateful. Maybe your own family looked at you sideways when you turned down that good job, or when you couldn't fake excitement about climbing their corporate ladder. But I need you to understand something that's gonna change everything. That resistance you felt, that wasn't weakness, that was warfare. That was your spirit going to battle against a system designed to cage what God created to soar. You see, chosen one, you've been carrying sacred discontent your entire life. And the world has been trying to convince you it's a mental health issue. They've been medicating what God intended to motivate. They've been silencing what heaven meant to sound like thunder. Let me paint you a picture. Your soul is like a lion in a cage of routines. Every morning you wake up and feel the bars. You pace, you roar quietly. You know you were made for the wild, but they keep feeding you through the slots and telling you this is safety, this is security, this is success. But lions weren't created for cages, dear one. And neither were you. Heaven put a symphony inside you, and the world gave you a to-do list. They handed you spreadsheets when God gave you psalms. They offered you cubicles when the Creator designed you for cathedral moments that change people's lives forever. That disconnect you've been feeling, it's not a bug in your system, it's a feature. It's divine design protecting you from settling for anything less than your true calling. The Bible tells us in Jeremiah 1-5, Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Did you catch that? Set you apart. Not set you up to fit in. Not programmed you to blend with the masses. Set you apart. You were never meant to find comfort in what makes everyone else comfortable. You were designed to feel restless until you find your rightful place in God's kingdom work. Think about this for a moment. How many jobs have you started with hope, only to feel your soul slowly dying? How many Sunday nights have you laid in bed with that familiar dread creeping up your chest? How many times have you sat in meetings thinking, there has to be more than this? That wasn't complaining. That was prophecy. That was your spirit recognizing that you were created for something the workplace could never contain. But here's where it gets deep. They convinced you that feeling was depression. They told you to push through it, medicate it, ignore it. But what if I told you that heaviness you feel isn't depression at all? That weight in your chest, it's not emptiness, it's fullness. It's unused purpose pressing against your ribs, demanding to be born. It's divine assignment knocking on the door of your consciousness. And you've been trained to keep that door locked. Every time you've felt like you were falling behind while others were climbing up, God was actually pulling you aside. While they were building careers, He was building character. While they were collecting paychecks, He was downloading purpose into your spirit that no salary could ever match. You know what your problem has been? You've been trying to squeeze eternal purpose into temporary positions. You've been attempting to satisfy infinite calling with finite job descriptions. And your soul has been rebelling because it knows better. This is why you've never fit in. Because you weren't created to fit. You were created to transform. You weren't designed to follow. You were anointed to lead others out of the very system that's been suffocating you. That job rejection you got last month? That wasn't disappointment. That was divine protection. That promotion they passed you over for. That wasn't punishment. That was redirection. Every closed door wasn't about what you lacked. It was about where you didn't belong. See, the world operates on competition, but you operate on calling. The world measures by production, but heaven measures by purpose. The world rewards conformity, but God celebrates the ones who dare to be different. You've been fighting a battle you were never meant to win because you were never meant to fight it in the first place. You've been trying to succeed in a game you were called to change. And that stirring you feel right now as I'm speaking. That recognition, that's not coincidence, that's confirmation. That's your spirit saying, finally, someone understands. If you feel something in you waking up right now, if you sense years of confusion starting to make sense, type "It's time" in the comments. Because what I'm about to share next will show you exactly what God has been preparing you for, while everyone else thought you were just standing still. The sacred discontent you've carried isn't your cross to bear. It's your compass pointing true north. And true north isn't a corner office or a retirement plan. True north is the place where your gifts meet the world's desperate need, where your calling creates the provision, where your obedience opens doors that no application ever could. But first, you have to stop apologizing for being different. You have to stop trying to fix what God never intended to be ordinary. Because what's coming next is going to require every ounce of that holy restlessness you've been carrying. Are you ready to discover why you never fit in? Because chosen one, you were never supposed to. You think you've missed it. You think it's too late. Right now, sitting there watching this, something inside you is whispering the cruelest lie the enemy ever told. Your time is up. Your chance is gone. You should have figured this out 30 years ago. Listen to me, chosen one. That voice isn't from heaven. That's the world's retirement mentality trying to convince you that God operates on a human timeline. But let me shatter that deception with the truth of Scripture. Moses was 80 years old when God called him to deliver an entire nation. 80. The world would have given him a gold watch and told him to play shuffleboard, but heaven said, "Now you're ready." Abraham was 99 when God promised him nations would come from his seed. Not 29, not 49, 99. When his body was as good as dead, the Bible says, that's when the miracle began. Anna the prophetess was 84, a widow who had spent decades in the temple, when she became the first person to proclaim Jesus as the Messiah. Her grey hair wasn't a disqualification, it was her credential. You see, the world retires people, but heaven recommissions them. The enemy wants you to believe that because you're in your 60s, 70s, 80s, that somehow God's plan for you expired with your last birthday. That's a lie straight from hell. Your calling doesn't have an expiration date, because the God who called you is eternal. Dear widow, listening to this alone in your apartment, wondering if your purpose died with your husband, God preserved you through that valley for a reason. You're not just surviving, you're being prepared for something that requires the depth only loss can create. Veteran, sitting there feeling forgotten by a country you served, questioning if your sacrifice meant anything. Your leadership wasn't wasted in those fields. It was being forged for a spiritual battlefield where your courage will awaken courage in others. Ex-pastor, carrying the wounds of betrayal and church politics, thinking your ministry days are over. God doesn't disqualify based on past hurt. He qualifies based on present surrender. Your scars are not your shame, they're your authority to speak to broken hearts. Forgotten leader, passed over for younger voices, watching the world celebrate energy over wisdom. Heaven sees what earth overlooks. Your seasoned discernment is exactly what this confused generation needs. Here's what the world won't tell you about aging in God's kingdom. Every year you've lived, every pain you've endured, every disappointment you've survived, every lesson you've learned, it wasn't preparation for retirement, it was preparation for your greatest assignment. The reason you're still alive is because your assignment isn't finished. God has preserved you for now. Think about it. In a world drowning in information but starving for wisdom, who better to speak than someone who's actually lived through what others only theorize about? In a generation obsessed with quick fixes, who better to demonstrate patience than someone who's learned that good things take time? In a culture that worships youth but fears mortality, who better to speak about eternal purpose than someone who's made peace with their own humanity? Your wrinkles aren't marks of decline, they're lines of experience. Your grey hair isn't a sign of being past your prime, it's a crown of wisdom. Your slower pace isn't limitation, it's deliberation. You move differently now because you know differently now. The young generation has energy, but you have discernment. They have ambition, but you have perspective. They have dreams, but you have tested faith. And in God's economy, tested faith moves mountains that untested enthusiasm can't even see. But here's the shocking truth they don't want you to know. The very things that make you feel disqualified are exactly what make you overqualified for your divine assignment. Your failures taught you grace, your heartbreaks taught you compassion, your mistakes taught you humility, your losses taught you what really matters. And now, when someone half your age is drowning in the same confusion you survived, who do you think God wants to throw them the lifeline? You think you have nothing left to offer? Listen to me carefully. The enemy's greatest fear isn't your youth, he already corrupted that. His greatest fear is your maturity walking in divine purpose. Because mature faith is dangerous faith. It's faith that's been tested by fire and came out refined. It's faith that doesn't need applause because it's learned to hear God's whisper. It's faith that doesn't fear man's opinion because it's tasted God's approval. The reason you feel restless in retirement isn't because you're ungrateful. It's because your spirit knows it's not time to coast, it's time to launch. God didn't keep you here to play bingo and watch television. He kept you here to be a weapon in his hands at the exact moment when wisdom is needed most. Some of you right now are arguing with me in your head, but I don't have the energy I used to have. Good, because this assignment doesn't require your energy. It requires his power working through your surrender. But I don't understand all this technology. perfect. Because the world is choking on technology but starving for authentic relationship. And authenticity is your specialty. But I feel so behind. Behind what? Behind a world that's lost its way. Behind a generation that has more access to information than any in history, but less wisdom than any generation before them. You're not behind, you're positioned. Positioned by divine strategy in a moment when the world desperately needs what only a seasoned soul can provide: tested faith, proven endurance, and the perspective that comes from having walked through hell and found heaven on the other side. If this word is confirming everything you've wrestled with in silence, I need you to do something right now. Get a piece of paper, not your phone, not your computer, actual paper and pen, and write these words where you can see them every single day. My purpose didn't expire. It's just getting started. Write it down, speak it out loud, because the enemy has been lying to you about your expiration date, but heaven is about to show you that your greatest chapter is just beginning to be written. And if you're ready to discover exactly what that calling looks like in this season of your life, if you're tired of the world telling you to sit down when God is telling you to rise up, then what I'm about to share next will change everything about how you see your future. My friend, here's where everything changes. Here's where we tear down the lie that's been suffocating your spirit for decades. The world taught you to think in terms of jobs. God designed you to think in terms of assignments. And the difference between these two isn't just semantics, it's the difference between slavery and sonship, between surviving and thriving, between existing and impacting. Listen carefully. A job is a human contract. It's temporary. It's based on performance. It can be terminated by people who don't even know your heart. But an assignment? An assignment is a divine covenant. It's eternal. It's based on calling. And it can only be terminated by the one who gave it to you. You've been thinking like an employee when God designed you to function as an ambassador. The job may have ended, but your assignment never did. Think about this for a moment. When a company lets you go, they're releasing their claim on your time. But when God calls you, He's not renting your hours, He's purchasing your life for kingdom purposes. And that purchase doesn't come with an expiration date. You see, the corporate world operates on a pyramid system. The closer you get to retirement, the less valuable you become. Your experience becomes outdated. Your energy becomes questionable. Your relevance becomes debatable. But God's kingdom operates on a vintage system. The older you get, the more valuable you become. Your experience becomes wisdom. Your trials become testimony. Your scars become credentials. Here's what they never told you about retirement. It's not God's idea. It's man's limitation placed on divine potential. God doesn't hire employees. He anoints carriers of His glory. When Moses was 80 years old, 80, God didn't hand him a retirement package. He handed him a burning bush and said, "Now your real work begins." When Abraham was 99, God didn't suggest he settle into a comfortable nursing home. He promised him nations would come from his seed. When Caleb was 85, he didn't ask for a rocking chair. He asked for mountains to conquer. Retirement is a label. Calling is an identity. And your calling doesn't diminish with agate. Deepens with wisdom. It sharpens with experience. It intensifies with urgency, because you know your time is precious. I need you to understand something that's going to revolutionize how you see your golden years. You are not winding down. You are being refined. Like silver in the fire, every year of your life has been burning away the impurities, the fears, the people-pleasing, the performance anxiety. What's left isn't weakness, it's pure gold. The enemy wants you to believe your best years are behind you. God says your best fruit is still coming. Think about a tree. A young tree produces quantity lots of small, tart fruit. But an old tree produces quality. The fruit is larger, sweeter, more nourishing. It took decades of weathering storms, of deep root systems, of seasonal changes to produce fruit that can truly satisfy. You are that mature tree. Your fruit isn't meant to compete with the young saplings. Your fruit is meant to nourish a generation that's starving for real wisdom, authentic love, and tested faith. The scripture says in Proverbs 18:16, "A man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men." Not a young man's gift, not a person's gift until they turn 65. A man's gift, a human gift. Your gift doesn't expire. It matures. But here's where most people miss it. They're waiting for someone to recognize their gift instead of activating it. They're waiting for permission instead of walking in assignment. Your assignment isn't found in the classified ads. It's found in your compassion. It's in the problems that break your heart. It's in the people you can't stop praying for. It's in the skills that flow through you so naturally that you almost take them for granted. That person who calls you when they're struggling, that's not coincidence. That's assignment. Those young people who somehow gravitate toward your wisdom, that's not accident. That's anointing. That ability you have to see solutions where others see chaos, that's not just experience. That's divine insight. You think you're too old to start something new. Moses disagrees. You think you've missed your window of opportunity. Abraham laughs at that notion. You think your season of significance is over. God says, it's just beginning. The reason you felt so empty climbing someone else's corporate ladder is because you were never meant to climb it. You were meant to build your own ladder that reaches from earth to heaven, one that others can climb to find hope, healing, and purpose. Your assignment isn't about making more money, it's about making more impact. It's not about building your 401k, it's about building your legacy. It's not about what you can accumulate before you die. It's about what you can activate while you're alive. And here's the beautiful, terrifying truth. You still have something to give. You still have someone to reach. You still have a problem to solve, a heart to heal, a life to change, a generation to influence. The world is facing a crisis of wisdom. Young people are drowning in information but starving for insight. They have access to everything but understanding of nothing. They need what you carry, not your energy, but your essence. Not your speed, but your certainty. Not your ambition, but your peace. Comment, I still have something to give. Because you do. And when you comment those words, you're not just making a statement, you're making a declaration. You're telling the universe, telling heaven, telling your own spirit that you refuse to be sidelined by age, marginalized by society, or minimized by fear. But here's the question that will determine everything about your remaining years. Dear ones, everything you've been taught about provision is backwards. Everything. The world told you to hustle harder, work longer, climb faster. But God's economy operates on a completely different principle. You don't hustle your way into provision. You align your way in. Listen to me carefully. There are 75-year-olds right now making more money than 25-year-olds working 80-hour weeks. There are grandmothers launching businesses that surpass Fortune 500 companies. There are seniors discovering their life's work when the world says they should be winding down. How is this possible? Because they stopped chasing paychecks and started chasing purpose. Jobs gave you paychecks. Purpose brings overflow. Let me tell you about Anna Mary Robertson Moses. You might know her as Grandma Moses. At age 78, when most people are settling into their final years, she picked up a paintbrush for the first time. The art world said she was too old, too untrained, too late. But God had other plans. She didn't have art degrees. She didn't have connections. She didn't even have proper training. But she had something the art world couldn't manufacture. Divine purpose flowing through aged hands. By the time she passed at 101, her paintings were selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Museums fought to display her work. Presidents hung her art in the White House. What happened? She aligned with heaven's economy, where your gift creates your wealth, not your grind. Then there's Harlan Sanders. You know him as Colonel Sanders. At 65, when the world told him to collect Social Security and fade away quietly, He was broke, living on welfare checks. The government said he was done. Society said he was finished. But God whispered, "Now is your time." Sanders took his secret chicken recipe and drove across America, sleeping in his car, getting rejected by restaurant after restaurant, 1,009 rejections. At 65 years old, can you imagine? But on attempt number 1010, someone said yes. Today, KFC serves millions of people worldwide. All because a 65-year-old man refused to believe that his best days were behind him. These aren't fairy tales. These are testimonies of heaven's economy in action. Provision chases obedience, not resumes. The Bible says in Philippians 4:19, "My God shall supply all your need according to his riches in glory." Notice it doesn't say according to your age, your experience, or your employment status. It says according to his riches, and his riches are limitless. But here's what breaks my heart. I see so many of you beautiful souls convinced that your time has passed, that you missed your window, that God's blessings are for the young, the connected, the educated. That's a lie straight from hell. Moses was 80 when God called him to lead Israel out of Egypt. Abraham was 100 when Isaac was born. Sarah was 90 when she conceived the promise. Anna the prophetess served in the temple until she was 84, and then she received the revelation that would define her legacy. God's timeline doesn't match the world's timeline. While the world sees expiration dates, God sees activation dates. You've been measuring your worth by worldly standards, how much you earn, how busy you look, how productive you appear. But heaven measures by different metrics: obedience, faithfulness, surrender. When you stop trying to force doors open and start walking through the ones God opens, everything changes. When you stop competing with people half your age and start operating in the wisdom that only comes with years of living, you become unstoppable. The enemy wants you to believe that your best days are behind you, that your dreams died with your youth, that it's too late to start, too risky to try, too foolish to hope. But what if everything you thought was your ending was actually your beginning? What if every disappointment, every rejection, every closed door was God protecting you from settling for less than his best? What if this moment right now, listening to these words, is the moment heaven has been preparing you for your entire life? The real work isn't out there, searching for someone to validate your worth. The real work isn't in those job applications that never get answered. The real work isn't in proving to a world that worships youth that you still have value. The real work is already inside you. It's in the wisdom you've gained from decades of living. It's in the compassion you've developed through seasons of suffering. It's in the perspective that can only come from having survived what life throws at you. It's in the stories you carry, the lessons you've learned, the grace you've discovered in your darkest hours. God placed gifts inside you before you took your first breath. Those gifts don't have expiration dates. They don't diminish with age. They mature like fine wine, becoming richer, deeper, more powerful with time. Right now, there are people desperately needing what you carry. There are souls searching for the exact message that your life has taught you. There are hearts breaking that only your particular brand of hope can heal. But they can't find you if you're hiding. They can't receive what you have if you've convinced yourself it doesn't matter anymore. The world needs aged wine, not young grape juice. They need wisdom, not just energy. They need depth, not just speed. If you know God is calling you to something but you've delayed because of your age, your circumstances, your fear, this is the sign you've been waiting for. This is heaven saying, now. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Now. Type, no more delay. If you're ready to step into the economy where your obedience creates your overflow, where your purpose generates your provision, where your calling becomes your career. But I need to warn you about something that's coming next. Because once you say yes to God's calling, the enemy will launch his final attack. So you're sitting there thinking, okay, I get it. Jobs aren't for me. But what am I supposed to do? How do I pay my bills? How do I survive? Listen to me, chosen one. God didn't bring you this far to leave you hanging. He's not calling you out of something without calling you into something greater. Instead of looking for jobs, build the altar. Now I know what you're thinking. What does that even mean? Let me break this down for you in a way that's going to change everything. An altar isn't just some religious symbol gathering dust in a church somewhere. An altar is where heaven meets earth. It's where your gift encounters God's breath. It's where ordinary becomes extraordinary. And right now, God is calling you to build your altar. What does your altar look like? It's simpler than you think, but more powerful than you can imagine. Start the small group. That burden you carry for broken marriages, for struggling parents, for people drowning in addiction. Stop waiting for someone else to create the space. You create it. Your living room can become a sanctuary. Your kitchen table can become a counseling center. God doesn't need a building. He needs a willing vessel. Write the book. Those stories you've been carrying, those lessons learned through your deepest pain, that wisdom earned through decades of mistakes and miracles. Stop telling yourself nobody wants to hear that. The world is starving for authentic truth. Your mess is someone else's message. Your breakthrough is someone else's blueprint. Mentor the young. Look around you. Do you see them? These kids who are making the same mistakes you made 30, 40 years ago. They're not looking for perfection. They're looking for someone who's been there. Someone who can say, I walked through that valley. Let me show you the way out. Pray aloud again. When's the last time you let your voice carry your faith? When's the last time you prayed over someone's situation without caring who was watching? Your prayers have power, chosen one. Your voice can break chains. Your words can shift atmospheres. Stop whispering when God called you to roar. Share your story. That testimony you've been keeping private. That miracle you've been too humble to talk about. People are dying for hope, and your story is their hope. Stop robbing the world of what God did for you by keeping it to yourself. Here's what most people don't understand. Your gift is your tool, but your scars are your strategy. Every heartbreak taught you how to heal hearts. Every failure showed you how to build differently. Every betrayal gave you the wisdom to spot authentic love. Every financial struggle equipped you to guide others through their storms. The enemy tried to destroy you with those experiences. But God was training you through them. Romans 11:29 says it plainly. The gifts and calling of God are irrevocable. Do you hear that? Irrevocable. That means no matter how old you are, no matter how many mistakes you've made, no matter how long you've been hiding, your calling is still active. Your gift is still valid. Your purpose is still urgent. But here's the part that's going to shake you to your core. While you've been sitting around waiting for the right time or the perfect opportunity, people have been suffering without what you carry. While you've been making excuses about your age, your education, your resources, souls have been dying for the very medicine that flows through your spirit. How many people could have been healed if you had started that support group 5 years ago? How many marriages could have been saved if you had shared your story? How many young people could have avoided your mistakes if you had been brave enough to mentor them? I'm not saying this to condemn you. I'm saying this to awaken you. Because today, right now, this moment, you can stop the delay. You can end the excuses. You can build the altar that's been waiting on your obedience. Your gift doesn't need a degree. It needs deployment. Your calling doesn't need validation from people. It needs activation from you. Think about this. Jesus didn't recruit theologians. He chose fishermen. David wasn't a trained warrior when he faced Goliath. He was a shepherd boy with a slingshot. Moses had a speech impediment when God called him to be a spokesperson. God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And you've been called. That restlessness in your spirit, that's the call getting louder. That dissatisfaction with ordinary, that's destiny demanding expression. But calling without action is just religious daydreaming. Faith without works is dead. Vision without movement is hallucination. So I'm going to ask you to do something radical right now. Something that's going to separate you from everyone who just watches these videos and does nothing. Say it with me. Lord, I say yes. Use me. Don't just think it. Say it out loud. Let your voice agree with heaven's plan. Write it down. Make it concrete. Make it real. Put pen to paper and declare your availability to God. Tell someone. Make it public. Make it accountable. When you speak your yes out loud to another person, you're closing the door on backing down. Act on it today. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Today. Take one small step toward building your altar. Send one text. Make one call. Write one paragraph. Schedule one meeting. Because here's the truth that's going to haunt you if you don't move. What if the very thing the world needs most is trapped inside your hesitation? You felt it, didn't you? That moment when everything inside you said yes to something bigger than yourself. Your heart raced. Your spirit leaped. You thought you'd finally found your divine assignment. You expected the heavens to open. You expected doors to fly wide. You expected God to roll out the red carpet because you'd finally said yes to his call. But then, silence. The phone didn't ring. The opportunities didn't come. The breakthrough you thought was guaranteed never showed up. And suddenly, you're sitting in your living room at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering if you imagined the whole thing. This is where most people quit. This is where they go back to their old jobs, their old patterns, their old safety nets. They convince themselves it was just emotion, just wishful thinking, just another false start. But chosen one, what if I told you that this crushing silence isn't God's rejection? What if this darkness isn't punishment, but preparation? Listen carefully. The space between the assignment and the release is the hallway of shadows. And every chosen vessel must walk through it. You're not the first to feel forgotten. King David cried out in Psalm 13, verse 1, "How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me?" David, the giant slayer, the psalmist, the man after God's own heart, felt abandoned. Samuel had anointed him king, but for years afterward, he was running for his life, hiding in caves, wondering if the prophecy was real. The prophet Elijah called down fire from heaven, defeated 450 prophets of Baal, and then ran into the wilderness, wanting to die. One day, supernatural power. The next day, supernatural depression. Even Jesus himself spent 40 days in the wilderness. After his baptism, after the heavens opened, after the Father said, "This is my beloved Son." The very next verse, "Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted." Do you see the pattern? The calling comes first. The crushing comes second. The coronation comes third. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand. That wilderness season isn't wasted time. It's not divine punishment. It's divine preparation. You see, God doesn't just give you an assignment. He has to prepare you to carry it. And carrying divine weight requires divine strength. That strength isn't built in comfort. It's forged in the furnace of seeming abandonment. Think about it. If God had given you everything you asked for the moment you said yes, would you have developed the spiritual muscle you're building right now? Would you have learned to trust Him when you can't see the way? Would you have discovered that your faith doesn't depend on feeling good? The wilderness strips away everything that isn't essential. Your ego, your need for approval, your dependence on immediate results, your addiction to feeling good about your progress. When the applause fades and the loneliness speaks louder than sermons, you discover something profound. Your relationship with God isn't based on what He does for you. It's based on who He is, period. And that revelation, that's the foundation every genuine ministry is built on. But let me address the elephant in the room. You're tired. You're questioning everything. Some days you wake up and think, maybe I should just get a regular job. Maybe I should stop chasing these dreams and be practical. The bills are real, the pressure is real, the doubt is suffocating, and everyone around you is saying, "See, I told you so. You should have stayed where you were safe." But here's the truth that will save your calling. God hasn't forgotten you. He's not done with you. He's not punishing you. He's emptying you. You can't pour new wine into old wineskins. You can't carry divine assignment with worldly thinking. You can't operate in kingdom authority while still being motivated by earthly approval. So God takes you into the wilderness. He strips away everything you thought you needed. He removes the people who were only there for your potential success. He closes doors you thought you desperately needed opened. Why? Because He's making room. Room for His voice to be the loudest in your life. Room for His approval to be the only one that matters. Room for His provision to be your source instead of your hustle. You weren't abandoned. You were being emptied, so you could carry something heavier. The assignment God has for you is too important to be carried by someone who still needs constant encouragement. It's too powerful to be handled by someone who quits when things get hard. It's too sacred to be managed by someone who's still looking for backup plans. That's why the wilderness isn't optional. It's where chosen ones become prepared ones. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before he led Israel out of Egypt. Paul spent 3 years in Arabia after his Damascus Road experience. Joseph spent years in prison before he became Prime Minister of Egypt. The greater the calling, the deeper the preparation. The bigger the assignment, the longer the process. So if you're in that space right now, if you're feeling forgotten, overlooked, abandoned, I need you to hear this. You're not behind schedule. You're right on time. Comment, "I'm still here," if you've been walking through a silent storm, but you're refusing to give up. Because what comes next will prove that every tear you've cried in secret, every prayer you've whispered in desperation, every moment you've chosen to trust when you couldn't see, it was all preparing you for what's about to unfold. The wilderness doesn't last forever, but the strength you're building there, that's eternal. You know what's breaking my heart right now? It's watching God's chosen ones define themselves by their worst moments instead of their divine assignment. Maybe you've been carrying a label that was never yours to bear. Maybe you've defined yourself by that divorce that left you feeling like damaged goods, by that pink slip that made you question your worth, by the deafening silence from children who've forgotten your birthday, your sacrifices, your love. But listen to me, beloved. God is confronting that false identity today. He's not using a glass window to show you what the world sees. He's using a mirror, His mirror, to reveal what heaven has always known about you. And what He sees will shatter every lie you've believed about yourself. You see, the enemy's greatest weapon isn't temptation, it's identity theft. He steals who you really are and replaces it with who you think you've become. He whispers, "You're just a divorced woman. You're just an unemployed man. You're just a forgotten parent." But God thunders back, "You are mine." Isaiah 62:2 says it clearly, "You will be called by a new name that the mouth of the Lord will bestow, not the name your ex-husband gave you, not the title your former boss stripped away, not the silence your children speak over you, the name that God calls you. And that name, it's been waiting for you to remember it." Here's what's happening in the spirit realm right now. God is peeling back layers of false identity that have accumulated like scar tissue over your true self. Every rejection, every failure, every disappointment, they became part of how you saw yourself. But they were never part of how God sees you. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. You are not disqualified. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. You are not disqualified. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. You are not disqualified. Let that sink into the deepest part of your being, because somewhere along the way, life convinced you otherwise. Somewhere along the way, you started believing that your worst chapter was your whole story. But God didn't call you by your maiden name or your married name or your professional title. He called you by your spirit name, the name he whispered over you before you took your first breath, the name that carries your true assignment, your real purpose, your divine DNA. And here's the shocking truth that's about to change everything. You've been grieving the death of the you were never meant to be. Think about it. How much energy have you spent mourning a version of yourself that was constructed by other people's expectations? How many tears have you shed over losing a life that was never aligned with heaven's blueprint for you? That successful career that imploded. Maybe it imploded because God needed you available for something bigger. That marriage that couldn't survive. Maybe it couldn't survive because you were being prepared for a calling that required your undivided attention. Those children who seem distant. Maybe God is giving you space to mother a generation that isn't biologically yours, but spiritually connected to your assignment. What if every loss was actually a liberation? What if every closed door was God protecting you from settling for less than His best? What if every moment of loneliness was Him creating space for you to hear His voice without interference? The woman Abraham married was Sarai, but God renamed her Sarah, Mother of Nations. The man who wrestled with God was Jacob the deceiver, but God renamed him Israel, Prince with God. The fisherman who denied Christ was Simon, but Jesus renamed him Peter, the Rock. Your past name described your pain. Your new name describes your purpose. And right now, in this very moment, God is calling you by that new name. Can you hear it? It's not whispered in shame. It's declared with authority. It's spoken with the same power that called light out of darkness, that spoke galaxies into existence, that raised the dead. You are not who your circumstances said you were. You are not who your critics labeled you. You are not even who you thought you were when you looked in the mirror this morning. You are who God says you are. And what He says about you would shock the world if they could hear it. He sees gifts in you that have been dormant for decades. He sees assignments waiting for your yes. He sees a generation that needs exactly what He placed inside you before anyone told you that you weren't enough. The reason you never fit into those jobs, those relationships, those expectations, it's because you were custom designed for something they couldn't contain. You were built for kingdom work, not corporate climbing. You were fashioned for eternal impact, not temporal success. So here's what I need you to do right now. This isn't just inspiration, this is activation. Write this in the comments. I am who God says I am. Not what life tried to label me, not what pain tried to name me. I am who God says I am. Because until you reclaim your true identity, you'll keep trying to fulfill someone else's assignment. And that's exactly why nothing has worked the way it was supposed to. You've been living under the wrong name, but that ends today. Because God is about to show you not just who you are, but what you were born to do with that identity. And what He's about to reveal will explain why the traditional path never worked for you. But wait. Before you think this is the end of your story, let me tell you something that's going to resurrect every dead dream inside you. Your fire isn't gone. It's been covered. You see, there's something the enemy miscalculated when he buried you under rejection, disappointment, and years of feeling like you didn't belong anywhere. He thought he was killing you. But here's what that fool didn't understand about chosen ones. The enemy buried you. But he didn't know you were a seed. Every no you received, that was soil. Every rejection letter, more dirt. Every time someone made you feel small, insignificant, or behind in life, they were just packing the earth tighter around the very thing God planted in you before you took your first breath. Seeds don't die underground. They multiply. That passion to build something that matters, it's still in you. I don't care how old you are. I don't care how many years you've felt stuck. That fire is burning hotter now than it ever has because it's had time to build pressure. That hunger to make real impact, to touch lives, to leave something behind that matters, it didn't die. It just went underground. And now it's ready to explode through the surface with a force that's going to shock everyone who counted you out. Listen to me carefully. God didn't extinguish your fire. He's been protecting it. While you were wondering why nothing worked out, He was shielding your calling from contamination. While you were questioning if you missed your chance, He was preserving your purpose for the exact moment when you'd be mature enough to handle the weight of what He's about to release through you. You think you're too old? Moses was 80 when God said, "Now it's time." You think you're too broken? David wrote his greatest psalms in caves. You think you've wasted too much time? The thief on the cross got eternity in his final hour. You were anointed for this, appointed for this, built for this. Every skill you picked up in jobs that felt meaningless, God was training you. Every relationship that taught you about people, He was educating you. Every season of suffering that broke you open, He was preparing you to hold something bigger than your pain. You were anointed for this, appointed for this, built for this. That restlessness you've been feeling, that's not anxiety, that's anticipation. Your spirit knows something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. The season of preparation is ending. The season of manifestation is here. And I need you to understand something that's going to change how you see every closed door you've faced. Those weren't rejections. Those were redirections. God wasn't saying no to you. He was saying not yet because the world wasn't ready for what you carry. But now, the atmosphere has shifted. The spiritual climate has changed. And what's been dormant in you is about to come alive with a fury that's going to leave marks on this generation. The prophet Jeremiah knew this feeling. He tried to quit, tried to walk away from his calling. But listen to what happened. His word is in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in. Indeed, I cannot. That's you right now. That burning in your chest when you think about what you're really supposed to be doing. That's not wishful thinking. That's prophecy trying to birth itself through your obedience. You can't hold it in anymore. You weren't meant to. The fire is falling again, chosen one. But this time, it's not falling on the broken version of you that was trying to prove something to the world. It's falling on the version of you that's finally ready to carry it. The version that's been refined by rejection, strengthened by silence, and prepared by pain. This isn't your comeback. This is your commission. God is looking for people who've been stripped of everything they thought they needed so they can operate purely from what He's given them. People who've been so disappointed by human systems that they'll trust divine strategy without question. That's you. You've been commissioned for this moment, not despite your struggles, but because of them. Every tear you've cried over feeling behind in life, that was intercession for the people you're about to reach. Every night you've wrestled with purpose, that was preparation for the authority you're about to walk in. The fire is falling again, but this time, it's falling on the version of you that's finally ready to carry it. You're not starting over. You're starting from a place of spiritual maturity that most people never reach. You know what doesn't work. You know what doesn't satisfy. You know the difference between activity and assignment. And now God is about to show you what happens when someone who's been tested by time finally says yes to what they were born to do. If you feel that fire returning, if something is burning in your bones right now that you can't explain, comment, "Burn in me, Lord." This is your recommissioning. This is heaven announcing that your waiting season is over. But the question that's going to determine everything that happens next is this. Now that you know your fire was never gone, what are you going to do with it? You know what's been driving me crazy? Watching chosen ones waste years of their lives begging God for open doors, when He's been standing there waiting for them to walk through the instruction He already gave them. Listen to me carefully. You've been asking God for permission, but heaven has already given you instruction. The problem isn't that God hasn't spoken. The problem is you've been too afraid to obey what you've already heard. That burden that's been sitting on your chest for months, maybe years, that thing that breaks your heart when you see it in others, that's not random emotional baggage. That's your assignment download. That's God showing you exactly what He created you to fix. But instead of moving on it, what do? You send out another resume. You scroll through job boards. You ask friends for connections. You're looking for man's approval when you already have heaven's authorization. Stop begging for open doors when he's waiting for your movement. Here's what I need you to understand right now. The job application was never your door. Your yes was. Your obedience was. Your willingness to step into what doesn't make sense to anybody else. That's your access card. You want to know where to begin? I'm about to give you the divine blueprint that's going to change everything. But you need to listen with your spirit, not your scared mind. The blueprint is in your burden. What breaks your heart? I'm talking about that thing that makes you angry at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep. That injustice you see that makes your blood boil. That pain you witness in others that reminds you of your own journey. That is your territory. That's your jurisdiction in the kingdom. God doesn't give you random emotions. He gives you strategic compassion. He breaks your heart for the things that break his heart. And then he expects you to do something about it. What healed you? Whatever brought you out of your darkest season? Whatever shifted your perspective? Whatever gave you breakthrough? That's not just your testimony. That's your toolkit. That's what you're supposed to be offering to others who are stuck where you used to be. You think your pain was wasted? Your struggle was pointless? Hell no. That was your training. That was God developing the very muscles you're going to need to pull others out of the same pit. And here's the question that's going to expose your assignment. What could you give, even if no one noticed? Even if you never got paid? Even if nobody thanked you? What would you do for free? Because it flows from your spirit, not your survival. That is your calling. That is where your provision is hiding. Not in the want ads, not in the networking events. In the thing that you've been treating like a hobby while you chase what the world calls real work. Habakkuk 2:2 says, "Write the vision down and make it plain." Not the vision you think sounds impressive, the vision that won't leave you alone, the one that wakes you up, the one that makes you feel crazy because it's so far from where you are right now. Write it down. Make it plain. Because what you write in faith becomes what God writes in reality. You don't need a plan. You need to act on the whispers. You know what separates the chosen ones who rise from the ones who stay stuck? The ones who rise don't wait for the perfect strategy. They don't wait for all the pieces to make sense. They move on the whisper. They step into the unclear. They start before they're ready. Because here's what I've learned in 50 years of watching God move. He doesn't give you the full blueprint up front. He gives you the next step. And when you take that step in faith, he shows you the step after that. You're not supposed to see the whole staircase. You're supposed to take the first step. You're not supposed to have all the answers. You're supposed to have enough faith to begin. That idea that's been haunting you. That vision that seems impossible. That burden that feels too big for you to carry. That's not coming from your imagination. That's coming from the throne room. And God is not in the business of giving you visions you can't fulfill. He's not cruel. He's not playing games. If he showed it to you, it's because he's already made a way for you to walk in it. But you have to move. You have to start. You have to say yes before you know the how. The enemy has convinced you that you need more time, more money, more connections, more credentials. But all you really need is more obedience. All you need is to stop making excuses and start making moves. Right now, I want you to comment, "I'm building what God showed me." Because that vision he gave you, that's not just a dream. That's your provision. That's your purpose. That's your path to impact and income that flows from your calling, not your compromise. Don't you dare let another year go by begging the world for opportunities when heaven has already given you an assignment. Your gift is not optional. Your vision is not negotiable. Your obedience is not up for debate. The blueprint is in your hands. The instruction has been downloaded. Now the only question is, are you going to build it, or are you going to keep making excuses? Because what you build in obedience will last longer than anything you chase in desperation. Listen to me, chosen one. What I'm about to tell you is going to change everything. Not just your understanding, but your very destiny. There is a spiritual transfer happening right here, right now, not somewhere in the distance, not in some future season. Right now, as you're listening to these words, heaven is releasing something that has been held in reserve for this exact moment in history. You see, Elijah's mantle didn't fall by accident. It fell on alignment. When Elisha refused to leave his master's side, when he declared, "I will not leave you" 3 times, he wasn't just being loyal. He was positioning himself for divine inheritance. He was saying to heaven, "Whatever the cost, I'm ready to receive what you're releasing." And God is asking you the same question today. Are you ready to receive? For decades, you've been wondering why nothing felt right. Why every job felt like wearing clothes that didn't fit. Why every opportunity felt like a spiritual straitjacket. You thought you were the problem. You thought you were broken, lazy, ungrateful. But what if I told you that every rejection was protection? What if every closed door was God saying, "Not yet. You're not ready for what I'm preparing to release through you." You've survived the fire. You've walked through the silence. The wilderness seasons where it felt like God had forgotten your name. The nights when you cried out, "Where are you?" and heard nothing but echo. Those weren't punishment seasons. Those were preparation chambers. David didn't become king the day Samuel anointed him. He spent years running from Saul, hiding in caves, wondering if the prophecy was real. But every cave taught him something. Every wilderness night built something in him that the palace never could have. And when the time came, he wasn't just ready to wear the crown. He was ready to carry the weight of a nation. That's what's been happening to you. Every disappointment has been developing divine character. Every setback has been building spiritual muscle. Every season of feeling invisible has been God preparing you to be undeniable. Close your eyes for a moment. Can you feel it? The weight of it, the mantle, the oil, the call. It's not just an idea anymore. It's becoming real. It's becoming now. 2 Kings chapter 2 verse 13 tells us, "He picked up the cloak that had fallen from Elijah and went back and stood on the bank of the Jordan." But here's what most people miss about that moment. Elisha didn't just pick up a piece of cloth. He picked up a legacy. He picked up an anointing. He picked up the authority to part waters that had never yielded to him before. And that's exactly what's happening to you right now. You've been waiting for someone to hire you, approve you, validate you. But God is saying, "Stop waiting for man's permission. I'm giving you heaven's authorization." This is not a viral moment. This is a divine ordination. This is the moment when everything shifts from waiting to walking, from hoping to happening, from surviving to thriving. For too long, the church has been filled with people waiting for a move of God, praying for revival, asking when heaven will break through. But God is saying to his chosen ones, stop waiting for a move of God. You are the move of God. You are not here to blend into the background. You are not here to play it safe. You are not here to retire quietly and hope you made a difference. You are here to awaken the spiritually dead. You are here to speak life into dry bones. You are here to demonstrate what happens when heaven invades earth through a surrendered vessel. The world is full of workers, but heaven is releasing generals. The marketplace is full of employees, but God is activating entrepreneurs of the Spirit. The church is full of attendees, but the Father is calling forth revivalists who carry his presence wherever they go. This transfer that's happening right now, it's not just about you finding your purpose. It's about purpose finding its expression through you. It's about the very heart of God finding a willing vessel to pour through. Every prophet who ever walked this earth felt inadequate when the call first came. Moses said, "I can't speak." Jeremiah said, "I'm too young." Isaiah said, "I'm unclean." But God didn't call them because they were qualified. He called them because they were available. And your availability is all he's ever needed. The mantle is falling. Not on the perfect, not on the polished, not on those who have it all figured out. It's falling on the faithful. It's falling on those who've been broken enough to be rebuilt. It's falling on those who've been emptied enough to be filled. It's falling on you. This time, you won't be the one waiting for breakthrough. You will be the breakthrough others have been praying for. You won't be the one hoping for a miracle. You will be the miracle walking into someone else's impossibility. The question is no longer, what am I supposed to do with my life? The question is, am I ready to let God do through my life what He's been waiting to do? Can you feel that stirring in your spirit right now? That's not just emotion, that's recognition. That's your soul remembering why it came to earth. That's destiny calling your name. The mantle is falling. Are you ready to catch it? Chosen one, before you close this video, I need you to remember 3 things that will anchor your soul in the days ahead. First, that restlessness you've been feeling. It's not a flaw in your character. It's the fingerprint of God on your spirit, refusing to let you settle for anything less than His perfect will for your life. Second, every door that closed, every job that didn't work out, every time you felt like you didn't fit, that wasn't rejection. That was divine redirection, protecting you from paths that would have diminished the very calling God placed within you. And third, you are not behind schedule. You are not too old, too broken, or too late. God's timing is perfect, and this moment, right now, is exactly when He planned to awaken you to your true assignment. You are not walking this journey alone. God Himself is working in your life, even in the moments when you can't see or feel it. And there's a community of believers, right here in this comment section, who understand your struggle because they've walked this same path. We're here to pray with you, encourage you, and remind you that your calling matters. Let me ask you this. If you knew with absolute certainty that God was about to use your life in ways that would impact generations, how would you live differently starting tomorrow? Now, let me pray over you with the authority of heaven and the heart of someone who's walked this road. Father God, I lift up every person hearing these words right now. Lord, you see the one who's been questioning their worth, wondering if they missed their moment. You see the tears they've cried in the quiet, the prayers they've whispered when no one was listening. God, I ask you to place your hand upon their shoulder right now and let them feel your presence. Remind them that you have not forgotten their name, their dreams, or the assignment you placed within them before they were born. Break every chain of fear that has held them back. Silence every voice that has told them they're not enough. Open their eyes to see the doors you're preparing to open. Give them the courage to step through them when you call their name. Lord, bless their finances as they obey you. Bless their relationships as they align with your will. Bless their health and strength for the journey ahead. And most of all, bless them with unshakable peace that comes from knowing they are exactly where you want them to be. In the mighty name of Jesus, I declare that their season of waiting is turning into their season of walking. Their time of preparation is becoming their time of manifestation. And what you begin in them today, you will complete. Amen.